Welcome to my channel, The Good Book Tales. In today's video, we're going to talk about something that almost everyone experiences at some point, but very few admit out loud. Have you ever prayed, cried out for help, or just quietly hoped for a sign from God, only to feel like no one was listening? That silence, like your words are vanishing into the air, is one of the most unsettling feelings a human being can carry. And yet, that sense of distance, that spiritual quietness, is not as uncommon as you might think. Today, we begin a story that doesn't just ask why God feels distant, but what that silence could really mean. Our story begins not in a church or in a holy place, but in the life of an ordinary person, someone who could be me, you, or the neighbor you walk past every morning. Imagine a young man sitting by his window late at night. His Bible is open, his journal half filled with questions that have no answers, and yet his heart feels heavy with something deeper than doubt. It's not that he doesn't believe. He does. He believes with every part of him. But lately, belief feels more like reaching for a shadow than holding on to light. He wonders why prayer feels so empty, why heaven feels silent, why the God he has trusted with every secret of his soul suddenly feels far away. It's as if the more he longs for closeness, the more distance grows between them. And that's where our story begins. At the exact moment, faith collides with silence. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Throughout history, saints, prophets, and ordinary people have all written about this same feeling. Even King David in the Psalms cried out, "My God, why are you so far from me?" This isn't just a modern struggle. It's something woven into the very fabric of spiritual life. But when God feels distant, is it because he's truly gone? Or is it because something inside us, or around us, is shifting in a way we can't yet see? The young man sitting by the window begins to realize that maybe the silence isn't punishment. Maybe it's preparation. But preparation for what? That's the part of the story we're going to unfold together. As the night deepens, he closes his Bible but can't sleep. The silence doesn't go away, and it gnaws at him, pulling at questions he doesn't want to ask but can't escape. What if this distance means I've been left behind? What if I've failed too many times? Or, what if the silence itself carries a message I haven't yet learned to hear? This is where the real suspense begins, because what he discovers in the days ahead will not only change how he sees God's silence, but it might just change how we understand our own. And that's where I'll leave you for now. Stay with me, because the next part of this story will dive deeper into what this distance really means, and why it could be the very thing that transforms your faith forever. The story picks up the next morning, and the young man wakes with the same heaviness pressing on his chest. He walks through his day, coffee in hand, phone buzzing with notifications, people passing by. But inside, there's a dull ache, the same lingering silence from the night before. He wonders if anyone around him feels the same, or if he's the only one quietly wrestling with the feeling that God has turned his face away. The world looks normal, yet to him it feels strangely hollow. Every prayer he whispers feels like it falls flat against the ceiling. And that's the heart of his conflict. How do you keep faith alive when the presence you once felt so close now feels like nothing more than a memory? This kind of silence is not always dramatic. Sometimes it creeps in slowly, so gently that you hardly notice, until one day you realize the joy is gone from your prayers. At first, it feels like maybe you're just tired. Maybe life has gotten too busy. But as days turn into weeks, the question grows louder. Why does God feel distant? That question, more than doubt or even fear, unsettles him the most. Because if God is love, if God is near to the brokenhearted, then why does his closeness seem so hard to find? He thinks back to the days when everything felt alive. Worship songs would stir his soul. Scripture would jump off the page, and prayer felt like a direct conversation with someone listening. But now, those same songs echo hollow, and the Bible verses lie quiet, almost unfamiliar. The change terrifies him. Was it something he did? Did he stray too far? Or is this just what faith really feels like when it's tested? The more he asks, the more restless he becomes. His friends don't see it. To them, he looks fine. He still shows up, still smiles, still plays the part of someone steady and sure. But underneath, there's a quiet unraveling, a tension between what he believes and what he feels. And that gap between belief and experience becomes the very place where the mystery of silence grows. At night, he begins journaling, not answers, but questions. Pages filled with words like, "Are you still there? Do you still see me? Why don't you speak?" The more he writes, the more he realizes he is not just talking into the air, he is fighting for his faith, fighting for some glimpse of the God who once felt so close. And yet, as the days stretch on, no answer comes, no dream, no sudden vision, no breakthrough moment, just the same silence. But hidden in that silence is something he has not yet recognized, a story unfolding, one that will force him to see that God's distance may carry more meaning than his nearness ever did. The silence begins to spread into other parts of his life, almost like a shadow following him wherever he goes. At work, he notices how small frustrations feel heavier, how conversations feel emptier. When he sits with friends, laughter rings around the table, but he feels oddly disconnected, as if he's watching life through glass. He wonders if anyone else notices that invisible distance, the gap not just between him and God, but between him and the world. The main conflict grows sharper. If God truly feels distant, then what does that say about everything else he has believed in? Late at night, he scrolls through his phone, searching for answers. He finds videos, articles, sermons, all talking about why God feels far away. Some say it's a test of faith, others say it's sin, and still others call it a season of spiritual growth. But none of those explanations settle his restlessness. If it's a test, how long does it last? If it's sin, what is the hidden thing he has done? If it's growth, why does it feel like shrinking? Every perspective he reads only stirs more questions. As he turns these thoughts over, another subplot begins to unfold. A friend of his, someone who used to share deep talks about faith, suddenly admits she stopped praying altogether. For her, the silence became too much, and she walked away. Her words shake him because they echo his own thoughts, thoughts he's been too afraid to say out loud. If she gave up, what's stopping him from doing the same? The conflict now feels like a battle on two fronts, his longing for God on one side and the haunting fear of losing faith on the other. And with every passing day, the silence presses harder, daring him to choose which way he will go. The weight of silence finally reaches a breaking point one stormy evening. Rain pounds against the window as he sits alone in the dim light, his journal open but his pen frozen in his hand. His thoughts swirl faster than the storm outside, and every unanswered question crashes against him like thunder. Why does God feel distant when he needs him most? Why do prayers echo back emptier each time? The tension rises inside him, pulling tighter with every beat of his heart. He begins pacing the room, whispering words he never thought he'd say out loud. Are you even listening? Do you even care? The words sting, but they come from a place so raw he can't stop them. His whole body trembles with the fear of saying too much, of crossing a line he can't come back from. Yet the silence remains unbroken, thick and unyielding, pressing harder than ever. Memories flash through his mind, moments when God once felt near. A prayer answered in the past, a moment of comfort, the peace that used to flood his soul. But now those memories feel more like taunts, reminders of a closeness that has slipped away. The contrast only deepens his despair. If God was near before, why not now? What has changed? Or worse, what if nothing has changed at all, and the truth is that God was never really there to begin with? The storm rages louder, and so does the storm inside him. He feels the tension pulling him apart, caught between faith and doubt, hope and despair. He's standing at the edge of something he cannot yet see, and the question hanging in the air is almost unbearable. Will the silence break, or will it swallow him whole? Just when he feels the silence can't grow any heavier, something unexpected happens. A phone call comes late at night, breaking through the noise of the storm outside. It's his younger sister, her voice trembling. She tells him she's been feeling the same thing, that God feels distant, that her prayers seem unanswered, and that she's afraid she's losing her faith. Her words hit him like a shock wave. For days, he thought he was alone in this battle, but now he realizes the silence has spread into the lives of people he loves. What he thought was only his private struggle is now a shared wound, and suddenly the stakes are no longer just about him. They're about her, too. This twist unsettles him more than he expected. If he loses faith, the weight only falls on himself. But if she's watching him for strength and he falters, what happens to her? The conflict sharpens into something bigger. It's no longer just a question of why God feels far away, but whether faith itself can survive in a world that seems built on silence. His heart races with guilt and pressure, as though his every choice carries the power to pull someone else closer to God, or push them further away. He tells her softly that she's not alone, but inside he feels like a fraud. How can he reassure her when he barely believes the words himself? Every sentence tastes like ash. Every promise feels empty. And yet, she clings to his voice as if it's her lifeline. That moment changes everything. What was once his personal storm now becomes a fire spreading across the lives around him. As days pass, he begins to notice more. A friend from work mentions he hasn't prayed in weeks. A stranger at church whispers that God seems silent in her life too. Slowly, he realizes this distance is not his burden alone. It's a quiet epidemic, woven into countless lives. The question that haunts him now grows louder. What if this silence isn't an accident? What if it's part of something bigger, something unfolding that no one yet understands? The thought chills him, because if God's silence has a purpose, it could demand more from him than he ever imagined. And if it doesn't, if the silence is simply emptiness, then the foundation he's built his life on might be nothing but sand. The tension coils tighter, pressing him toward a breaking point, and the question remains unresolved. Is the silence hiding an answer, or is it all there is? The storm inside him finally breaks one sleepless night. He kneels by his bed, not with eloquent words or carefully chosen prayers, but with nothing left to offer except raw honesty. Tears blur his vision as he whispers, "If you're real, if you're still here, I need you. I don't need answers, I just need to know you haven't left me." It's not a polished prayer, it's a cry from the deepest part of his soul. For the first time in weeks, he stops trying to control the silence and simply surrenders to it. And in that moment, something shifts. Not a voice booming from the heavens, not a vision or miracle, but a stillness different from the empty silence he's known. It feels less like absence and more like presence too deep for words. The heaviness doesn't vanish, but it changes form, becoming something he can carry instead of something that crushes him. He realizes that maybe God hasn't been absent at all. Maybe the silence was not rejection, but invitation. An invitation to trust beyond feelings, to cling to faith when evidence seems hidden. His sister calls again the next day, her voice brighter. She says she doesn't know why, but she feels lighter, as though just admitting her doubts out loud gave her strength. He listens quietly, knowing now that his own struggle somehow gave her courage. What once felt like isolation is revealed as connection, a reminder that even in silence, God weaves lives together in ways unseen. But just when the conflict seems resolved, an unexpected twist comes. As he flips through his old journal, he notices something startling. Many of the questions he's been writing, pleas for closeness, cries for understanding, mirror the words of the Psalms almost exactly. Without realizing it, his doubts and despair have echoed the same prayers of those who came before him. It's as if the silence he feared was proof of abandonment was actually pulling him into a story far larger than his own. The climax doesn't bring easy answers, but it leaves him with a truth he cannot ignore. God's distance was never distance at all. It was the hidden thread drawing him deeper, shaping faith in the shadows. And yet, as he closes the journal, a chilling thought lingers. If silence can hold meaning, then what other mysteries might still be hidden, waiting to be uncovered? The days that follow feel different, not because all the problems are solved, but because his perspective has shifted. He no longer sees silence as proof of God's absence, but as a space where faith learns to breathe. The quiet no longer terrifies him. It challenges him to lean deeper, to search for meaning not just in feelings, but in trust. The distance he once feared has become a reminder that faith is not built only on answers, but on the courage to keep going when answers are hidden. His sister finds comfort too. Their late-night conversations no longer circle around despair, but begin to spark hope. She admits that knowing she wasn't alone changed everything. What once felt like the end of her faith became a new beginning. And together they learn that God's silence does not equal God's absence. It was in the questions, in the raw honesty, that they discovered a closeness stronger than before. Even with friends and strangers who confessed their struggles, he now speaks differently. Instead of offering polished advice, he shares his story, the nights of doubt, the unanswered prayers, and the realization that sometimes the silence itself is part of the journey. People lean in, not because he claims to have all the answers, but because his honesty makes space for their own unspoken questions. The very conflict that once threatened to shatter his faith becomes the bridge that connects him to others who feel the same. As he closes his journal for the last time in this chapter of his life, he smiles. He knows the silence may return one day, but now it will not haunt him the same way. He has learned that faith is not the absence of questions. It is the choice to keep trusting even in the midst of them. And perhaps that's what the silence meant all along. Not punishment, not abandonment, but an invitation to grow deeper, to listen closer, and to discover that God's presence is often hidden in the very places we least expect. So the story ends not with thunder or revelation, but with something quieter, something steadier. It ends with peace in the silence, and the reminder that when God feels distant, it may be the very moment He is drawing us closer than ever before.